Fantastic. Welcome, Bram Lagrou. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so looking forward to this interview. I know a lot about you and I'm looking forward to sharing you with the rest of the audience as well. So welcome and thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you also to take some time out of your busy schedule, Kylie, and very pleased to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm really glad to have you on board. So look, I've got, I want to start with first, I always like to just share with the audience a little bit about who you are personally before we even get into the business side. So who is Bram Lagrou personally?
It's always a good start to start with the person, right? So, well, first of all, yes, I reside in Adelaide, South Australia, but I was originally born in Belgium. So think about the country of beers and chocolate. That's where I'm from. Yeah. I stayed there for quite a while, but I migrated here about 10 years ago. And sometimes people ask me, why did I move? Well, guess what? It was for love. Now, the same woman that I came for is not the woman that I'm with today, just to clarify. I am from a background, a psychologist. So I graduated after 7 years of hard work, catching up with my friends and just study when I had to, but had a great time in university. And as soon as I graduated, I went back to business, and I have pretty much been in business now for 15 years. First of all, as a regional European sales manager for a Fortune 500 division, selling portable spas in 15 countries in Europe that I was looking after. And then, and then pretty much came to Australia and started my own business. And that is now already more than 10 years. So it's been,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think that's why I like you so much, because my background is also psychology as well. And I think we connect because what we think about people, and we love talking about, we love the behaviors, we love learning about them. But I think most of all, we actually love helping them, because I know that's exactly why I do what I do. And I know it's why you do what you do as well.
So true. So I definitely, I remember like having, back in the days when we were in school, high school, I remember there was this guy who was assigned by the school to help kids get ready for the next thing. And it was like career orientation. And he asked me, like, what do you want to do? And at the time, I knew already that I want to do psychology. So I said, I want to do psychology. And he asked me a really interesting question. And the question was like, Carly, why would you want to do that? And by the way, he was a psychologist too. Why would you want to do that? And I'm like, I just want to learn like how people think and like be able to help them and figure them out. And he said, well, good luck with that. I'm still not there.
I love that. I love that. And, I think I've always loved helping people as well. But the reason I actually did psychology and a lot of counselling as well was I was doing claims in insurance, in finance and insurance. And it was back in the very early 90s, and maybe mid 90s. And I was starting to see this real big increase in mental health claims. And they were just becoming huge. In nearly every few claims, it would be someone with depression or stress or anxiety or PTSD. And we would work very closely with psychologists and psychiatrists and the mental health professions in helping people to get them back to work, because that's ideally where we want to be able to do it. And I remember working with the psychologist who was an amazing psychiatrist, and he said, Kylie, you've got to go and study this. This is amazing. And that was the driver for me. So it's interesting that it was like, how do we help people to get back, whether it be at school or whether it be later in life. So thanks for sharing that, Bram. And I'm so glad you're in Australia too, because what an amazing country that we are in, and especially during this unprecedented time. I think there's not very many countries that can feel as safe as us, is there?
Definitely, especially the so-called old home country. It's a basket case right now. And imagine that I normally would have been there a few months ago. And then somehow my plans changed for the better, and luckily enough, yes, I'm still here, which is such a great country to be in, and I'm now a very happy and proud Aussie.
Yeah, good on you, good on you. Well, look, your title says Chief Difference Maker. So let's move in. Tell us a little bit about your business now.
Well, appreciate that question. Well, look, probably going to retract a little bit. The title before was managing director of a business that I had, nicely grown over the years. But that was a consulting business, and I think, over time, sometimes we learn things the hard way. The school of hard knocks. There's universities and professional development and the likes, but the school of hard knocks definitely treats us on some good lessons. And one of the key things that that I learned over the years is that consulting is great, but having a business where you just sell time is not ideal, especially if you're thinking about wealth creation and an exit strategy and all the great things that financial planners are very, very well on top of. I lacked in my early days. So I started 10 years ago, like a little bit more. It's been now over a decade. And let's say while I started with consulting, and I bought a franchise to actually access some great IP from Brian Tracy, who's obviously a global authority in the field of leadership and time management and sales. I worked with him alongside him and his business partners in Australia, grew my business to work with quite a considerable amount of heavy hitting clients like, ANZ, Westpac, PwC. I've done a lot of training and coaching for Investors Direct Financial Group, a few AMP branches, and a few other, financial and professional services institutions. But I started really liking training and coaching, and so with Brian Tracy, of course, I could do quite a lot of it. And I made it finally then in the top 3 in the Australia-New Zealand region as a franchisee. But then,
beautiful.
But then I started seeing like there's so much outgoings with these programs, and I got my own IP. And people love that sometimes more than they love what Brian has got to offer. So why do I keep paying these big, heavy fees? Let me just do my own. And then so about 4 years ago, I winded up the franchise agreement as such and continued on my own. And I haven't looked back. And now I'm doing a lot of online training and coaching. And here and there, as time and COVID permits, I do still have some live events as well, which I absolutely love.
Yes, yeah. There's nothing better. Look, I do so much online training now and coaching, and it works absolutely. What I've found is though that I still love the energy you get from face to face, isn't it? You can't beat that human element when it comes to it. Look, thanks for sharing that with you. So, what drives you to get out of bed every single day and do what you do?
Well, great. I'm going to be succinct this time because I know that I've been rattling a little bit. Two things. You mentioned earlier already my title, Chief Difference Maker. Well, I figured that I wanted to really show, rather than impress people through a title like MD, I wanted to now this time really show like what my why is, why I'm doing what I do, and I really want to make a difference in people's lives for the better. So whether that is being on a personal level or on a professional level, and ideally speaking on both. And that's whenever I achieve that, and I am receiving some feedback of people that say, I've done this course with you, and 7 years later, I'm still referencing that almost every week, and I love it. And when I hear this sort of feedback, my God, you mentioned energy. I just feel another big rush going through my veins because I know that this is what I'm here for, and this is what really lights me up. And so the more I do that, the better it is. So impact is what I call this. I call this my first thing. My second value is one that I actually learned from working more and more with people like Dr. John DeMartini, which is about wealth creation. And so we obviously are in business not just to impact, but we also want to benefit from what we do. And, when you own your own business, you really want to create something that can kind of grow and survive beyond you. So that it also benefits yourself and your family and potential, people that will come be after me. So that's pretty much my two main things, why I do what I do and why I've been so tenacious over the last decade.
Yeah, love it. And impact it's so true, isn't it? We've got to make an impact. We've got to leave that impact, but also, as you say, that legacy, because we also want to leave the legacy to our family and even to the people around us as well. I'm always curious as to what you feel your clients' 3 biggest challenges are.
It's funny. When I think of that question, I would say it's probably the same challenge, but it's in 3 different areas. And I find that, I've been very fortunate to work with people now in 16 countries on the ground. So not just, through webinars and, Zoom calls and whatever. I effectively have done training and coaching in hotels and convention centers in 16 countries today. And most of that has to do with dealing with people. I mean, as I said, my background is in psychology. I love business. But then when you start looking at like dealing with people, what does that consist of? My clients would typically be challenged in 3 areas in terms of people. And that one would be business development or sales. How can we be more successful in engaging people so that we create buy-in rather than make people feel that they're being sold to? I think that's really a key thing. One of my books, for example, actually my first book that I wrote is called How Selling Is Out, Create Buy-in. And the idea is that we don't have to sell. We don't have to pressure people. We don't have to manipulate people. We don't have to do the bad, treat people in a bad way. We can really be noble about what we do as long as we have the know-how and we're equipped with the right tools to initiate meaningful conversations that follow the right steps and allow people to open up in terms of their heart, first of all, because you can have the best logical product and the best pricing and whatever and the best cover and all of this, but unless people first feel a certain way around you, only then they will be able to embrace the information that you bring to them on a logical level. So buy-in happens first emotionally. Secondly, then you need to be able to justify logically. And as you have both of them working for you, a sale is easy because people want to buy. And that's really the first area that I really love, which is called sales mastery. The second area is leadership. So over the years, I probably have now trained and coached just in professional services alone about 500 partners and directors, and some of which in the biggest corporations in the world. But then also, for example, at organizations like the Submarine Corporation, I've easily trained and coached 200 people in middle to high level executive roles, working on submarines, a multi-billion-dollar project. So there's not very many organizations that have that sort of product and that need very detail-oriented people that can deliver and sustain over a longer period of time. But here's the trick again. Imagine now if you're, kind of either building a new or you're stripping an old submarine, how many people, how many hands, how many, minds, how many hearts you're touching along the way over a 2 years FCD, what they call a full cycle docking. There's so many people involved, and some of which are the analytical people like engineers. Others are then, the tradespeople like, electricians or plumbers or people that have to weld these things together. And they are all such different beasts. So how can you kind of, make it work in a very complex, not only environment, but also working on a complex thing that takes such a long time to plan and execute, right? So that's the leadership component. Again, dealing with people at a leadership level. And then the last but not least is, I know it's also one of your big subjects and babies, so to speak, which is the experience that clients have, customer experience. My original background from a family's history is in hospitality. And if I just think about, like, if only more businesses would really think of them being a host, welcoming a guest into their business, the entire philosophy and demeanor changes for the better, because you're thinking about, well, how can I make these people welcome them, look after them, care for them, and make them feel listened and heard and understood and appreciated, so that they will keep coming back and send their friends and really feel at ease in our place. That sort of philosophy and experience is what I absolutely love working with businesses in. And I've done it with your Hiltons in the world. I've done it with the 5-star Mayfair Hotel. Actually, and you stayed there recently when you came to Adelaide. A lot of people there were trained by me as well. And many other 4- and 5-star venues around, because I like keeping that sort of background, injecting it into other businesses that tend to be more logical, tend to be more cerebral, because they need more heart. The logic is there, but they need more heart. And I think that hospitality background and the experiences that I still maintain today help me really in supporting my clients for the better.
My gosh, you've touched on so many gold nuggets in that. I just want to touch on a couple because otherwise we'll just totally railroad this interview. But that meaningful conversations, absolutely pivotal. Okay.
Mm.
Clients want to have a meaningful conversation. So that is really critical. And in fact, one of my programs is meaningful conversations. How do you have them? Because it is so important that we ask meaningful questions, isn't it? And one of the things you touched on was about that heart and the emotion. And, I actually think there's a number of different types of questions, but we often talk about open questions and closed questions. But I actually talk about emotional questions, and especially when we're talking in financial services, because it is an emotional buy, okay? Because we are either protecting someone's family, or we are protecting their retirement, or we are building on their legacy. And all of that comes from the heart. Love it. And then customer experience is critical. And so many companies did it wrong. I just posted something the other day about $8 billion is lost in Australia every single day every single year, because of poor customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now in these times of COVID, customer experience has changed. The customer journey has changed, so people have to change with it as well. So I think businesses need to pivot quite fast in that part as well.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'll move on because that is just somewhere where we could just speak for hours on. But look, tell us a little bit about your experience in working within the financial services industry.
Well, again, I'll try to be succinct, but as you can tell, I like talking as well.
Me too.
Yeah, the passion exudes, it just has to
Yeah,
come
it does.
So look,
I know.
my experience with in the financial planning industry, like unlike you, I'm not a financial planner, but I do love what financial planning represents. I remember actually in one of the keynote speeches that Brian Tracy has, he actually references a conversation with an insurance broker that got him sold on $1 million insurance policy for himself. And it always has stuck to my mind. And one thing that I will admit is that my relationship to money and finances and overall has been really a journey, like one where I was never taught how to deal with money. I was never taught to plan for the future other than saving.
Right.
Save for the future. Well, save for what? I was never really in that area until recently, when I started really seeing that certain people were at times better off than I was, sometimes at a younger age, and I figured out what is really going on here. What am I kind of missing out of? So I started very consciously educating myself in the area. And then as I was starting to work with people that were professionals in, the area of looking after money, they really took my fancy and my attention, and I really wanted to learn from them and deal with them. And so, so I started really, as I had a personal development journey in dealing with money, I started to notice that more and more of these people were kind of coming to my workshops, coming to my training sessions, being coached. And it's really funny when we internally change, the outside world starts to reflect the change, as a mirror would. And one day I actually had two people in my team, two women, one of which is now my wife actually, and her best friend, working for me on the phones. And we were doing a phone campaign where we were very much targeting specific industries. And we were inviting people for coffee meetings, but with a very good reason why. Not just, airy-fairy, wishy-washy, but saying we had a good reason and a good script that we were working with. So we were doing this outbound campaign. And I remember still my wife sitting on the other side of the workstation, calling up on a guy called Arthur Callis. Arthur Callis was at MBA financial strategist, and he was a general manager at the time. And it's only about after I started working with Arthur that he actually gave me some really, really interesting feedback on how he received that phone call that day. And I want to share that with you because I found myself later on, multiple years later, when Arthur had moved on to Melbourne and was working for a financial institution over there, he actually had invited me in to work with his team, being planners, And he wanted to help him with some really good people engagement tools that would help him to also convert more business. And at that workshop, he literally introduced me without me even knowing that he would say this. Guys, I brought in this guy from Adelaide. I've known him for years. And why I want you to work with him is because one day, one of his staff rang me. The phone call went so well. It made me really intrigued to know who I would be meeting up with without really knowing what I would be getting out from it. But he said, I took the meeting. I loved how it went. And the rest is history. And I think you guys can all learn from that sort of experience on how you can transfer that and inject that in our business. And so that was pretty much, let's say, my really start with the financial planning industry it was really like a Kickstarter, because since then I've had so many different experience with them. And one thing that I'd like to share is me being now the observer and sometimes the coach working with these people, is that I've noticed that a lot of people in the industry, because of probably a lot of PD and compliance requirements, is that a lot of them still are practitioners first and foremost. And I think that it's really good as long as they keep doing the work and keep doing the grind. But as soon as I start growing and scaling up, there's definitely a big need for something else that the traditional means of PD don't, let's say, educate for, such as sales mastery.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And, many people think, picking up that phone is that old school way, isn't it? Because social media has taken over so much of our marketing. What do you think? And this is just a random question, but what do you think for financial planners? Do you think they should be still picking up the phone and doing some of those calls, or do you think they really should be getting out there and doing more of that social media marketing, whether it be on Facebook and Instagram and places like that, Twitter?
Well, look, I really love that question for the following reason. So depending on what a practice owner or a principal wants to do with his firm, the question is, are they happy at the level that they're at? Because if they are, they probably can just make it work with a little bit of marketing and just looking after the existing clients based on the client experience and just look for referral type of arrangements. That in itself would probably help to keep things the way they are. But if they have identified that they want to grow and scale because of the different environments requires a bigger type of business. That's when I think that the phone is pivotal. Why? Because yes, you can be very direct with your marketing, but like all marketing, it takes really great marketing online to make it work and convert. Unlike, for example, if you already know that there's a particular type of person out there in the world that you can service really well, and you've got a track record, and you've got a big trust base, and you've got the systems and processes and policies and products really well aligned with that sort of demographic. Well, wouldn't it then be, let's say, an act of good faith to pick up the phone and find a way, an opportunity to sit down with these people, understand and learn where they're coming from and what they're trying to achieve, and see how you might help them directly or indirectly. I personally love and swear by it, because I think that too many people are just waiting for things to come their way. And I think a proactive mindset really is very helpful, because I'll share one example of a financial services professional that I've worked with. He identified one person in Australia that if he were to win his business, that would have pretty much lay his golden eggs for years to come. One person.
Yes.
Now, for these type of really highly strategic potential accounts, I think it's really worthwhile to strategically pursue them or find good reasons why to initiate a conversation and see where it takes you. That one conversation that I helped to construct him, after 10 months of not getting anywhere, in one meeting with 5 minutes of coaching of mine, converted the business, and it won him 86% growth in 16 months with one account. Now, last time I checked, for 86% growth, most financial planners would have to buy a book to get that happening. And buying a book means there's a lot of potential skeletons in the closets that you didn't know about before you bought them. And they come with a cost, and you paid for them even though they're dead. And they might cause a lot of headaches. And so I personally love strategic business development, knowing who are the right people to go and talk and spend time with. And then for as long as you only got 10 of them on your list, but you know how to engage them, you've learned how to do it. Guess what?
Yes.
From the time you spend, you're going to get results. And that's what I absolutely love with Sales Mastery. So yes, you're social, you're online. We both do it. It's great. It's got its place when you want to grow or just maintain what you've got. Then also the phone and other more traditional means of business development, I think they go really hand in hand for people that want to grow.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not a one solution fits all, is it? It is really a strategy that covers all of those, the partnerships, working with your referral partners. When I talk about partnerships and referral partnerships, they're different people, okay? Often people will go, oh, well, isn't partnerships just my referral partners? No, it's not. Many people are now moving away just from your real estate and your accountants and your solicitors to look for referrals. They're actually looking for people that are different, that are going to bring some added value to that client. And then I think you definitely need a social media strategy, but you also got to be able to pick up that phone as well, because it's not just that one size fits all. What do you think some of the financial planners' challenges will be over the next, at least, let's just touch on 12 months, because I think anything more than that in such an unprecedented environment, it's a bit hard to even gauge. So what do you think some of the challenges that they'll face over the next 12 months will be?
Yep. Good one. Well, look, I think the first one, I kind of started talking about it, but one of them, which would definitely be finding the right size of business. I think because of all the compliance requirements and the expectations that are just being enforced from the outside world. I think for the people that were sole operators, well, I don't think that there's a lot of future there. So one of the challenges is like, well, how much should we grow, and do we want to grow, and what will it take to get there, and is it worth it? I think that sort of questioning is probably number one. The second one would be to streamline a business so that it's actually not just profitable, but it's actually also fun. It's only a few, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I spoke with I would say quite a successful financial planning principal in Melbourne. And, after I spoke to him now a few times, I can sense that the fun is squeezed out of his business right now. And it's making him feel a certain way. And I think when we are too much under pressure for, to keep up with the compliance, making sure that all the clients are serviced, redoing everything that has to be done, getting all the processes and, the fine detail all looked after. When there's too much of that and not enough of client-facing meetings and, putting the advice together and then following up and all of that, well, then, of course, there's a lot of work to be done internally before you even want to grow. Because the last thing you want to do is being stuck in a business that is your own and feeling like it's slave. And I think that's really number two, right? Really making sure that the fun comes back so that you can make profitable business, but also enjoy what you're doing. Number three, I think it would be finding, again, that beautiful balance between organic growth and, buying a book. And if people decide that, yes, they need to grow and they want to be there for a longer period of time, and they want to grow, well, how will you do it in a way that, yes, you buy something that's already existing and you can just amalgamate it and add it to your existing portfolio. But then also, who are those strategic opportunities that you already have an affinity with? You already have a good track record with. You already have, you want to deal with these people because you like them or you like what they represent, and when you have that, it's about having the strategy that encompasses all the avenues and play to your strengths and do that. And probably there's two more probably that I want to share.
Go for it.
Very short. I think one is also a challenge of staying relevant today.
Yes.
Because there is commoditization, and whether we like it or not, why should I do business with you? Why should I do business with me? How can you show your difference in a meaningful way for them? Because you bring it back to a point that you raised earlier in your social media post as well, which, how can you translate that what you do is meaningful to them, to their needs, their wants, their expectations, their desires, and all of that? Well, you need to be able to convey that. And so meaningfulness, staying relevant, I think, is a great one from a client's point of view. And last but not least, which I know is also a big one for After Callus, is adopting new technologies. For some people that are a bit more of the classical school and probably maybe not, a bit older, they might find it a bit more tricky to, go beyond Zoom meetings. Well, guess what? Technology is there to make our life easier. Should we embrace it and find the right ones? And I definitely swear by it. Like I said earlier, in my business, I was a consulting business first and foremost, and I'm shifting it more and more to automated, streamlined, products rather than services only online. And therefore, it's more meaningful.
Yeah, I agree. Streamlining it is absolutely critical, isn't it? Especially in today's world, especially with all the compliance that financial planners face as well. They've got to make that back end so much more streamlined in order to get them back doing what they love doing, and that is sitting in front of clients, talking to clients, solving real problems, actually helping them to have the future that they want. And also, you touched on, why would I want to do business with you as well? And I was only talking to a financial planning director the other day, and we were talking just about that. One of his mottos is, we want our clients to be healthy, wealthy, and I think it was wise, but the healthy part that I talked about, was so that they could live a good life. And I said, how are you helping with that? And he's like, well, I really want to start to develop that strategy around that. And we were starting to talk about, what I was talking to him about was around that surprise and delight. How are you surprising and delighting your customers so they do want to stay with you? So we were talking about, there's some businesses that do amazing things for new clients. And we were talking about, you could get some of those food boxes delivered to them as a thank you gift. What kind of financial planning client is actually going to think that a financial planner would send something like that? But when your motto is healthy, then how are you allowing them to be healthy? So I love the fact that it's why do I want to do business with you, but how do I surprise and delight? Love it. Love it. We bang on a lot about soft skills, okay, and we talk about the importance of it. And, I think sometimes I even say it in my sleep, okay. But why is soft skills, and I know you do lots of training around sales skills, soft skills, why do you think soft skills is so important in the financial planning industry?
First things first, in financial planning, from all the assessments that I've done over the years and all the contact I had with people in there, it tends to attract a specific type of person. And that person loves detail and analyzing and research and planning for the future and looking after people's security and all of this sort of stuff. It's a very typical type of person, and because of that, it tends to also attract somebody who lives more in the mind and is might have a higher IQ, if I want to bring it back to terms that we all know and easily use in our daily life. But so as soon as you start thinking about soft skills is really something beyond IQ. It's about how we deal with people, how we treat people, and how we make people feel around us. And because that is more in the personal space, and you could say arguably that's more EQ, emotional intelligence, right? And once again, it's the mind and the heart thing. If a financial planner, just already think about like the sheer amount of logical work that is being undertaken in the industry. In a way, it's like exercise in the gym. The more you exercise the muscle, the more that muscle grows, but sometimes also at the expense of something else that remains less developed, right? If I am, if I'm doing all the the strengthening exercises to do my biceps and triceps. Well, guess what? My legs might stay really like thin and narrow, right? And
Yes, yeah.
I think it's the same idea with soft skills here. Because of the sheer amount of work that we do in financial planning, we might at times underdevelop what really is important for people to want to do business with us in the first place. And so I love this soft space related stuff that much. And I really highly encourage people in the industry to embrace it because it kind of keeps the balance. And once again, people will not really care about what you know in your brain. They will always first want to know how much you care about them. And I think the care is first. Get the emotions right. And then, you know, your education is already you're already straight away in the logical space anyway. But pair them up and you got a recipe for success, guaranteed.
Yes, absolutely agree. And, you know, I was a financial advisor myself, but I've also coached over 1,000 financial advisors in my career. And one of the things I love doing is sitting in with financial planners so that I get to observe them. I get to hear the questions they're asking. I get to hear how they're educating. I get to see how they're creating that rapport. And I really see when someone has got this amazing ability around soft skills, that amazing ability to just connect. It's like this banter that just flows and it's beautiful. And then I've sat in many appointments where there's this awkwardness and it's kind of like, this is embarrassing because they haven't developed those soft skills. So it feels like sometimes when they're not developing those soft skills that they're actually just asking a barrage of questions or just an inquisition of questions with no real empathy or softness about it. So yeah, absolutely agree. I'd love to know, because I roll out a framework around meaningful conversations, and I'd love to know, what do you think are the soft skills or the parts in the conversation where financial planners could be better around their conversational skills?
One of the first things that I see that financial planners might actually not be very mindful of, and I really use consciously the word mindful, is that all of us we're programmed in a certain way. There was a book actually that is called We're Hardwired. And, you know, we do things in a certain way and have done for years and decades. And, you know, if you're 40, you've done it for 40 years, you know, in a way. And so we're hardwired. We're trained to do things in a certain way. But one of the pivotal things that I've really learned over the years is that we treat people the way that we personally want to be treated. But is that really right? Is that really right? Let's just say that I'm somebody that loves analysis and I love, you know, crunching numbers and looking at statistics and graphs and, you know, getting things right and looking for the detail and, you know, finding the holes in people's theories and frameworks. If I really like that and I like more a conservative pace of, you know, retirement strategies and all of that, it means that I've got a high analytical, high compliance driven nature. But does that mean that your clients appreciate the same? No. And in fact, if I put numbers to it, in Australia, there's only 12 to 13% of Australians that like that represent that sort of style. And that means also by default that if a planner like that walks into a room and starts a conversation in a very logical, analytical, compliance driven way, and he's sitting across a person who, like most Australians, tends to be a people person, who's more outgoing, who's more open-minded, who's less guarded and skeptical, but more open and positive. Well, guess what? You start seeing that there's a dynamic there that is not really gelling with one another. The chemistry is not working. And as a result, they cannot position themselves as a trusted advisor because emotionally, they don't make the person feel comfortable. And that is a big problem. So, I actually forgot now what the question was really about, but I think the point I made was a good one.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I'll expand on it because you have answered my question. You have absolutely answered my question. The question was, what part of the conversation do you think that they could be better at? And I think you're absolutely right. I have often heard financial planners educate clients on so many topics to such a high level that I've literally watched the client switch off, okay, and they haven't connected with them on that emotional level or that connection there. And I often find it's that first part of the conversation. It's getting a financial planner. I really work with a lot of financial planners to get them to stay in that space of finding out from the client at a more deeper level those emotional questions, really connecting with the client on what's important and why is that important and what would that mean, and all of those beautiful emotional questions before they touch on any of the strategies, the services, or the solutions. Okay, so connect at that level first. So you're absolutely right. And then, you know, when they can, and this is emotional intelligence at its best, isn't it? You know, when financial planners are talking at such a high level strategy that they've actually not been self-aware that the client is actually not with them. Okay, and
the face going blank, well, then it's a sign that something has to change.
Yes, and most clients are like, I don't care how you get me there. I just want you to get me there. I've told you what I want. I've told you why it's important. You ride the vehicle or drive the vehicle with whichever way you want in order to help me have that part of it. So I think you're right. It's connecting with them up front, and then it's actually sharing with them at a high level the strategy and the solution and the services, but making sure you've got that emotional intelligence to really make sure that the client is on track with you. I know many people that actually say to people, does that make sense, or do you understand that? Most clients won't say, no, I don't. Most people won't say, no, I don't, because I don't want to look like I'm a fool. I don't want to look like I don't know what you're talking about. So it's really important to make sure that they also are aware of those bits and pieces.
Well, that point that you just mentioned there, Kylie, and thanks for getting me back on track. Now I know what the question was. You really talk there about empathy, like just having that emotional sensitivity to be able to read people's nonverbal language is another great one to know, like, hey, am I connecting with this person, or am I pushing them away? I think that's another great one. Another one then is, well, how do I read them? You know, is this a person that will really appreciate me keeping it short and succinct and very, business-like, or is this somebody that really wants to have a casual chat with me and just really, first befriend me before I even look at doing any business whatsoever? Having that sensitivity to read people and then treat people in their style, the way that they want to be treated, I think is a huge opportunity in financial services as a skill set in terms of soft skills. One more is then, well, now that I know what style they have and what my style is and how I can bridge the gap if there is any, well, how will I now structure the meeting in such a way, and my follow-up, my future communication with them, so that I do the right thing by them, and I also take it at the time and pace that they are looking for? Because some people want to be, like you said, they just say, just tell me what I need to be doing and I'll do it because, my brother recommended you, so I trust you already.
Yes,
and they can make a decision on the spot. Whilst others will have to sleep over, talk to their wife, take the dog out for a walk, and revisit 2 years later, as a way of saying, right?
Yes.
So how do you then follow a process that is designed to create the buy-in emotionally and mentally, so that you end up doing business together and that they're really happy with you and refer? Those are a few aspects.
And it's funny, isn't it, because people actually take in information differently. We take in information differently, and I'm often coaching financial planners around, how are your clients taking in that information? Are they visual, are they auditory, or are they kinesthetic? Because if you're talking to them and you're just using your words and they're not auditory, they're not going to get it. But you using the whiteboard or doing some drawings or getting them to draw or take notes, you can kind of adapt your style to work with them. And there's real telltale signs as to whether people are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic as well. But most people don't pick up on it because they either haven't been taught it or they haven't been coached on it as well.
True. So it's about accommodating, being agile, rather than forcing your own style upon them, which most people tend to do by default. So if you ever heard treat people the way that you personally want to be treated, I say it's a scam. It's deceive you. Seriously. Like, just think
Yes.
about it. If I'm now the analytical planner, my success rate with Australians, and in most countries there's a similar rate, is about 12% of the time. Now,
Yeah, right.
just think about it, 12%, because there's not that many people that have the same style, which means birds of the same feather, they flock together. People that have a similar thinking, they easily do business together. But if your clients are not like that, guess what? You really will struggle. And so
Yeah.
if I am on the opposite side and I'm a really highly flamboyant, social, gregarious animal with, you know, lots of energy, and I don't like the details, I just like the big picture and the ideas and the dreams of, you know, sipping strawberry daiquiris on a beautiful beach with a palm tree waving above me. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very different way of being and thinking and talking and, you know, living and breathing. So being able to get into people's shoes and be able to speak and relate to them, that in itself is one of the biggest skill sets that I have come across in terms of the soft skills arena that financial planners also get a lot of value from.
Yes, yeah. It's funny because as a coach, I would normally ask people, what kind of coach do you want me to be? What kind of coach do you need me to be? And I actually get financial planners to ask the clients, what kind of financial planner do you need me to be for you? You know, do you need me to hold you accountable? Do you need me to do this for you? What is it you need from me? You know, sometimes it's as simple as asking our clients what it is that they need, isn't it? Yet we don't do it enough.
I like the idea of asking, but I also think that lots of people might sometimes not know. So you ask them the question, what do you need? And they say, well, I don't know. You know, what can I choose from? It's almost like, you know, walking past the shop front of a store, and unless I've seen a certain outfit combined in a certain way, I don't have an idea on what I would like to buy. But then, so imagine now that I walk into a store and without having seen anything at the front that I actually liked, I might look around and I might be swamped and inundated. So I think it's also important that you kind of gauge people before and give them a few ideas to kind of help them to answer the question.
Yeah, see, I don't ever have that problem walking into a clothes shop and not sure what I need.
Oh, well.
Not quite sure that connects with me. Oh, no. Okay, let's move on. So you've been in business for 10 years here in Australia.
Yeah.
What do you wish you knew that you know now? What do you wish you knew 10 years ago?
Good question. Well, as I said earlier, I think financial literacy is, I think, something that had only come in recent times. I remember like a good friend of mine teaching me just in my personal life to use different buckets with budgets and, you know, percentages of income, you know, going into different funds. All this sort of thinking, I never educated myself in that area. And you can imagine then how my finances looked for a long time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're then educated by a mum who, like you, likes going to shops and always said, money is there to fuel the economy. Guess where the money went?
Straight to the economy. Is that what she would say? That's great.
Yeah. So looking back now, one of the great things that I learned is really working with this friend of mine who taught me what he calls the thermodynamics of money and working with the wealth principles. And so that in itself changed my life around for the better. But the same also then goes back to my business. Cash management or cash flow management is obviously thing that is, you know, it makes or breaks a business. And again, I've learned the hard way. Next one, planning for success. I might have already noticed that my DISC style, which is a framework that I always use for working with all the clients that I have, because it's really foundational to how to deal with people. My natural style is high D, high I, which means I'm very fast-paced, big picture orientated, very comfortable in talking to people, can be very upbeat, and at other times I really want to get things done, and, you know, I'm under time pressure and I kind of really bust through it all and use the elbows maybe if I need to. But I've known how to cut the edges off a little bit over the years. But anyway, that's my style, which means I can easily find an idea that I like and launch myself in action and then kind of, you know, see something else that I like too. And so I've learned over the years that really being successful in any business requires proper planning, but then also execute properly and be able to say no to the wrong things. And
Mm.
that sort of stuff is all, let's say, my last 5 years probably in my personal and professional development. And I think it's also definitely benefiting me working with my clients because, like I said, a lot of my clients, they're professional and financial services professionals. So they tend to be on top of these things, right? So
Yes.
if I understand and appreciate more where they're coming from, and we have that sort of knowledge and know-how in common and those behaviors and skill sets, then I can more easily also fill the gaps that they don't have necessarily, but that already came naturally for me from pretty much day dot, which is a people
Yes.
skills area.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Fantastic. What is the one piece of advice that you could give a financial planner today?
I think probably after speaking to all the people in the industry is to revisit on a regular basis where you're coming from, why you've entered this game, and if you're still on track. Meaning,
Mm.
personally, are you still there where you want to be? I think it's really important that we keep ourselves in check, keep checking in with
Yes.
ourselves. Either we do it ourselves or use a coach or a trusted advisor, or so
Yeah.
to work with, because I think it's very easy if there's external expectations and enforcements to make you do things in a certain way. It's very easy to lose control and
Yeah.
lose yourself in the process. And I think coming
Yes.
back to Alpha Catalyst with his book Spark, and of course Spark Financial and Spark Tank Coaching, your spark will really take you forward, and the lack of the spark will make you go back. And so
Yes.
finding the spark, or at least rekindling the spark on a regular basis, I think it's super important. So whether that means that you need to go to the gym every week, or you need to,
Yeah.
like a client of mine, want to play squash once a week with your buddies and have a beer afterwards, or you want to go and sit in a sweat lodge and sweat it out and go for bushwalks. Whatever it is that makes you spark, don't let anyone stand and take away from it, because the last thing you want to do is say, well, I haven't got the time and I have to do this and I have to do that. You know what? There's always ways to outsource, delegate, or automate or streamline anything that you don't want to do that takes away from the spark, right? And so
Yeah.
that is why you would want to work with a coach as well, because sometimes it's too lonely and too hard and you get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah, agree, and life is too short, isn't it? Life is far too short for us to not do something we love. And I think many financial planners, many, and if not most, do this because they love what they do. They love helping people. And you're right, sometimes business can drag us down into this total spinning wheel that we forget to look back up and realize why we've done it. So I love the reference to the spark. Okay, my last question for you.
Yes.
Are you ready for it? What's
Give it
the one thing that I haven't asked you today that you'd like to share with us, with the audience today?
I'm just going to speak from the heart what I feel that especially financial planning people may need more of. So I'm looking to make the impact and make the difference in a positive way, is let emotions guide you. Emotions always give you feedback to let you know whether you're on track or off track. So whether you feel anxious and fearful, that is an indication. And you can work with those emotions to come out on the other side. Contrary, if you're feeling overwhelmed and swamped, again, those emotions are giving you feedback. If your energy is really low and negative, and you used to be more positive and upbeat, guess what? It's feedback. And what I'm trying to say by that, it's not bad. I think a lot of people, you mentioned earlier, when we started off, the mental and the mental health and just wellness overall. I think it's important that we really look after that and use emotions as our guide, rather than saying, hey, I don't want to feel this stuff, or I don't want to be anxious. I'm just trying to tuck it away, and I don't want to talk to anyone about it. Guess what? Use it as your guide, because it's helping you to grow to the next level.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to share.
Oh, look, I love that one. I'm so glad you ended on that, actually. And one of the things that I actually have in my calendar, and it pops up every month, and it says, how is my body talking? Okay. And that is a reminder for me to go, right, where am I? How is my energy? How is my health? How is my activity? How is the food that's fueling my body? How am I? Okay. And I literally, when it pops up, I stop and I go, right, what's going on? Okay. Often in such a busy world, we actually push it down or push it aside or try to jump over it or around it or go under it. Okay. But we've got to be still with it to be able to go, right, what's going on for me. And I love how you said that too, because we haven't talked about that before ever. So it's nice to know that you're on that same level with me. Bram, I have absolutely loved talking to you today. I love what you do. I love what you encompass. And I love the work that you do with people as well. So thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to be able to share this with the audience. There's so many nuggets of gold in there that'll just help so many of the people within the financial services industry. So it was a pleasure to have you here today, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you also for taking the time to interview me on this, and I had a ball as well. And I really appreciate also the fact that we're working together, and I look forward to serving a lot of people out there.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bram. Have an amazing day in South Australia.
Wish you the same over in Queensland. Bye-bye.
Bye.